Hi, I'm Jay Mitchell, Sioux Empire Market President at First Interstate Bank, where we proudly put communities first by supporting Feeding South Dakota's mission to end hunger. Hunger affects every corner of our state, and our team is committed to being part of the solution, whether that's by volunteering or using our resources to make a lasting impact. This September, in celebration of Hunger Action Month, we encourage you to join the fight against hunger with a donation, and we'll double the impact with a match. Let's build stronger communities together. Go to feedingsouthdakota.org and make a gift today, because no one should go hungry.
If you were to advise a listener, what are one or two things that they could do right now when they get to their destination or they're done with this podcast that they could do right now that would be impactful?
Look up Feeding South Dakota. Reach out and offer yourself to them. That would be that is an impactful organization that is in your community, serving your community.
Mm-hmm.
Reach out directly to Feeding South Dakota and help.
There you go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of 50 Faces of Feeding South Dakota. If you're new here, I'm Stacy Andernacht, Vice President of Public Relations for Feeding South Dakota, and I'm hosting this year's podcast. It's our first podcast in recognition of our 50th anniversary, where we're having conversation with 50 different people who are impacting the landscape of hunger here in South Dakota. Today, we have a special guest, and we're actually kicking off Hunger Action Month this September. That's a national movement to engage people in the fight against hunger. So I'm very honored to have our guest today, and I'm going to get right to it. Without further ado, I would like to have Claire introduce herself. Claire, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Well, hello, South Dakota. I'm Claire Babineaux-Fontenot, and it is my great privilege to serve as the CEO of Feeding America. I'm thrilled to say I've been to South Dakota before, and teaser alert, I'll be back again soon.
Yay! So, Claire, will you share just a little bit about your background and what got you into your role as the CEO of Feeding America?
Well, I've got to tell you, if I were being completely transparent, I'd have to say this had to be a God thing. So let me start at the beginning, but I'm going to try to make it fast. So I come from a unique family background, and I'm sure that it started there. I'm one of 108 children. That's right.
Wow.
108 children through biology, adoption, and fostering. My parents are in the National Adoption Hall of Fame.
Wow. That's incredible.
I agree. Amazing parents. And for your listeners and viewers, I have two kids, only two kids. And the longer I'm a mom, the more I marvel at the kind of mom my mother was. So
for sure.
It actually started there. It really started there with coming up in a home where the normal path into our home was because something was broken in the one you were born to. Knowing about hunger my whole entire life, being a person who has personally experienced food insecurity and hunger. So I've been carrying that with me as I've gotten all these remarkable opportunities to do all kinds of extraordinary things. I'm a lawyer by training. I worked in law firms, in government, at the IRS, at the Louisiana Revenue. Maybe that's a little bit better for people. And I also worked in industry. I was executive vice president and treasurer at Walmart. I think they know where Walmart is there.
I think so.
In South Dakota, that might be a brand that they recognize. So, and then almost exactly 10 years ago, I learned that I had cancer. And when that happened, I got the message loudly and clearly. I don't get always, and asked myself whether there was someplace else I was supposed to be. And the answer was here. So I say that I made a giant leap, and the Feeding America Network caught me. And I am so deeply grateful that I've had the opportunity to do this work. And the thing that makes it magical in large part is because I get to do it with people like you, the team at Feeding South Dakota. So.
Well, that's very kind of you. So Feeding America was a safety net in a big way for you,
It
bringing
was.
you to your next experience, just like we help people with their food safety nets. So that's just an incredible background, Claire. And it really, I think for me, what resonates is knowing that the person leading this work to fight hunger in our nation is somebody who knows so much, so intimately about it. Because food insecurity isn't always a lifelong thing. It can be a season for people, and it can be a time. And yet we know that access to food is so important for people's well-being and their success. And I think you are such a great example of having lived in this experience and using it to now give back to our communities and make sure that other people don't have to wonder where their next meal will come from. I wonder if your mother was ever disappointed you didn't have 108 kids.
I don't know.
I can't imagine.
But I don't think she was assuming that was going to happen. I think she marveled when I had the first, and then just was so joyous when I had the second one. But I think my mom, one of the remarkable things about my mother was how she was able to see people and see who they were and who they could be, and I think she kind of knew
it wasn't going to happen.
That was not the path. But I've gotten the chance in the work that I do to serve children in beautiful and powerful ways. So I like to think she looks down and smiles.
And to give back in a way that's meaningful, just like your mom did with bringing kids to a place that they felt safe and comfortable. A little side note and fun fact, your son was on The Voice, right?
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
I was catching that, and I thought he had to be your son because that's a unique last name. And so I think I caught a couple episodes before I caught your post that you were following him on The Voice. So congratulations.
So funny. And by the way, this is the actual outfit that I wore for the blind auditions on The Voice. So
made for TV.
It feels right that I have it on again. So Babineaux-Fontenot is my boy. And what I loved about that whole experience for him was that he showed up as himself. And he's a beautiful, complex, wonderful person who was in law school, quit law school to pursue a music career. And he's living into what he's meant to be. And I love that the life that my husband and I have had and the work that we've done creates a space for him to be able to do that. And in fact, it makes me think about the work that you and I do together. Stacey, we're trying to create spaces for a lot of people's dreams to come true. So
that is so true. So let's dive off of that just a little bit and talk about, Feeding America is a national organization. And a fun thing people might not know is that there's actually a whole research component to Feeding America. And so for our listeners and our viewers, if you haven't gone to the website and looked at the Map the Meal Gap interactive map to find out what food insecurity looks like all the way down to a county level, go check that out because it really gives you that local understanding of what food insecurity looks like. But that's just a portion of Feeding America's work. But can you talk a little bit, Claire, here in South Dakota, we've been seeing food insecurity rates on the rise year over year. And we're often talking about even just the people using our programs and our partners continuing to be on the rise. What does food insecurity look like on the national landscape?
Well, it looks the same as what you're seeing right there in South Dakota. Nearly 50 million people are food insecure in the country right now, based upon the most recent data that data comes from the USDA. We're approaching 14 million kids who are food insecure. I think maybe the people who watch this and listen might think that food insecurity rates were at the highest that it's been in a long time during COVID. That's actually not true. Then our remarkable country, who I will count on all the time to do good, and we're in a remarkably generous country. When those lines were there and obvious to us during the pandemic, we did what I expected us to do. We stepped up.
Mm-hmm.
We had such an outpouring of support there in South Dakota. I went to South Dakota during the pandemic, and I
Yep.
saw the remarkable support that you were receiving. It was happening all across the country.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, um, when those cars went back and those lines went back on the insides of buildings, people thought hunger went away.
Yeah.
So we've seen less financial support, uh, less federal commodities, a
Mm-hmm.
lot less when the need has been increasing. So that's happening all across the country. But
That gap keeps widening
gap
between resources and need is widening and getting to a point where it's becoming difficult for food banks to close that gap. And I think another thing about food insecurity is it's not always associated with poverty. You look at the map, the meal gap for South Dakota, and it exists in every county in South Dakota, but that's not unique. It exists in every county of the nation, the wealthiest counties and the poorest counties.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's something that when I thought I knew a lot about hunger, having
Mm-hmm.
experienced hunger, having grown up the way that I did, and there were so many things that I've learned since I've been in this role, like what you just said, that there is actually not one county, and now I'm from Louisiana. My last name's Babineaux-Fontenot. I'm going to have to say parish. So there's not one county or parish in the whole
Yeah.
country where there aren't people challenged by food insecurity. Every single place. Yes. So you name the place. Beverly
Mm-hmm.
Hills. Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
There are people
Mm-hmm.
experiencing hunger. Lawton County. Yes. There are people experiencing hunger. So it is actually a national challenge, not just in one place, not just in rural centers or in urban places.
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole nation. So because it's one of those big problems, and because we are who we are, we've got to think about this as a national issue with some local implications, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or as a local issue with national implications. But as long
Mm-hmm.
as we understand the one is connected to the other, I think that's critically important.
Yeah. And so you mentioned some of the things that have changed, the food insecurity rates on the rise, and we're seeing more people who are dual income households who just don't have enough in their budget to put food on the table, especially in the summers when kids are out of school. And if your child was on free or reduced meals during the school year, now you've got to provide every meal for the summer. And that can be a challenge. That's not unique to South Dakota. Some of the things that are unique is the incredibly rural nature of our state, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But you mentioned commodities, and we refer to them as USDA programs, and a change in pounds of food that are going out to the food bank network as a whole. While it's not dollars, because there's always a lot of conversation about nonprofits that lost dollars in funding. For me, when we talk about it, it's more than dollars. It's food. And it's food that pound by pound, even though we get great purchasing power through the network, we can't afford to replace. And that's where, just bringing that understanding that when you have a line of people that grows every month, at what point do you say we can't? And you don't ever want to have to say that as a food bank.
Absolutely. And in fact, I've traveled. I know you know this. I've actually gone to every state in the
Mm-hmm.
United States, and I've gone to hundreds of food banks across the Feeding America network, and I've seen some beautiful acts of kindness and generosity and
Mm-hmm.
grace every single place that I've gone. Um, but among the most challenging moments that I've ever had with people who do this, with food bankers, has been as they would their eyes well with tears when they talk about having to turn somebody away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I know that that's challenging. And again, I also have so much confidence in our country that if we understood that it's still here, we talked about the numbers. I don't know if I ever mentioned food insecurity rates went down during the pandemic.
Right. Yes, they
It went
did.
down during the pandemic. They're now they've only been higher than this once in the history of them monitoring food insecurity rates. And that is not what people understand.
Right.
And then if I may, one other thing about
Yeah.
South Dakota, I having been there, having walked those streets, having talked to people there, what remarkable generosity exists there. And I love rural communities. I'm from one, by the way, and I don't have nothing against the city I live in now. I live in Chicago, Illinois, and it's one of my favorite cities in the whole wide world. And there's something about people in rural America, the grit, the determination, the desire to get it done, to get it done for yourself, to be sustainable. I find that to be highly consistent with people experiencing hunger that I've met all over the country.
Yeah.
So I just hope that this will be one of those issues that South Dakota and the country decides that this is one of the things we're going to agree on.
Yes.
We're not going to agree to disagree on this one. We're going to agree to agree. We can do something about this. Let's go make some stuff.
People need food. Like that's a pretty, I mean, it simplifies it. I know that, but people need to eat, and food banks need food to help people eat. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And that's where some of the greatest challenges are right now. You have a great story, Claire. When I started with Feeding South Dakota about 4 years ago, the first time I met you was at a national conference in Kentucky. And I remember you telling a story. Louisville, yes. I remember you telling a story about you went to visit, or anytime you go to a city to visit a food bank, you check in at a hotel, and I'll let you take it from there. What do you do?
Yes. And it's so powerful that you mentioned it, because you know that it happened right there.
Okay, I set it up a little bit.
So whenever I go into cities, and especially during the pandemic, I would fly into one city and then I drive my car all the way across a state. In the state of South Dakota, you have both the challenge and the good fortune of having one food bank that serves that whole entire state. So no matter where I was in South Dakota, I knew that the beautiful hands and generous hearts of this food bank were serving those communities. So there I was. I'm in South Dakota, and I did what I often do. I'll check into a hotel or go to a fast food place or wherever, and I'll ask people, I hear there's a food bank around here somewhere. So I did it in my hotel. So, isn't there a food bank near here? What's the name of that food bank? And I'm being a little coy. I won't lie, but I'll be a little coy. And some beautiful, powerful things happen when I do that, because consistently they know the food bank. So this particular lady, her eyes welled up with tears. And she started explaining to me, she said, oh my God. She said that the food bank was a lifeline for her. She went on to explain that she worked at that hotel, is downtown Sioux Falls. And I won't say her name, because the only name I can think of for her is her actual name. So I'll just leave it there. But she shared her name, and she became so emotional. And she said, I never imagined I'd ever need to go to a food bank. But she said during the shutdown, and then in the immediate aftermath of the shutdown, that the hotel was closed. And she worked at the hotel, and she found her life partner, who became her husband, at the hotel. So the two of them were both working at the hotel. And suddenly the hotel's closed. They have no income whatsoever. And she heard about the fact that there was going to be a food distribution in her community. And she was too embarrassed to go initially. And then she looked in the cupboards and saw she had to. But it was so affirming to hear her say what she's done with that experience. And she was back at the hotel working. The hotel was clearly open. I was staying there. And she was talking about how, as a result of that, how, number one, she doesn't make too many assumptions about who it is that's in those lines anymore, or even if they have fancy cars, because her car note was based upon the income she had, not an anticipation that she would no longer have a job, and that her husband wouldn't either. But she also talked about how she was going to pay it forward. So she said, she needed the food bank that day, and she was going to be supporting that food bank forever after that moment of need. So it was such a powerful reflection. And I do it on a regular basis. And it's one of my favorite things to do when I enter a town.
You gather a little intel.
I get a little intel from different spots, and consistently people say, oh yeah, are you saying, and I'll stumble with the name, and they'll go, yeah, oh my goodness, they're remarkable. My grandma, She
Mm-hmm.
needs to go. And and I actually run a pantry at my church. And they're the ones who give us the food. And the people come to the church pantry and they don't even know where that food came from. What they know is that they needed some food and the food was there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's just been all those beautiful. I didn't realize you knew that story. Look
I
at you.
did. Well,
You do
hey,
your own sleuthing, don't you?
I was with the food bank, I think about a month when I came to Louisville. So it was all very new to me. And much like you, when I came into the food bank, I didn't know what I didn't know. And I very quickly going to that conference was so important for me and my learning because it was inspiring and hearing from other food banks and hearing from you. And you told that story. You didn't necessarily say it was South Dakota, but our CEO leaned over and said, "That was South Dakota."
It
And
was. I didn't
and
realize
so
that anyone made a connection to that, but because the truth is so powerful that I just practice telling it,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
so,
Well,
so
and
that
that's
story is what that story was, but it was
that's right.
so representative of so many
Yes.
people. But that's exactly what she was right. She didn't ever tell me that she knew that's where that story came from. That's
She did.
exactly where the story came from. She did.
So
Right.
I want to pivot just a little bit because one of the things that under your leadership at Feeding America has been very important has been elevating the voices of people with lived experience, people who have faced hunger or are facing hunger, and bringing those stories forward. Even like you just shared, we may not always get the permission to share their name or share photos. I have that happen to me often when I gather stories in South Dakota or have conversation. People will say, "You can use my story. You can use my experience, but I don't want to share my name because I don't want other people to know." You kind of mentioned a little bit about the culture here, and we are a very proud Midwestern culture here, but it's so important that those stories are shared and those realities are elevated. Will you share a little bit about how Feeding America has brought those voices into the network and why strategically that was important?
Oh yeah. So, I think I was actually listening in at a Feeding America conference. It was a virtual conference, an annual conference during COVID. And I heard a person with lived experience with hunger refer to her experience as expertise.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wait, that's right. It actually is expertise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What if we engage with people experiencing hunger inside of their expertise as people who would understand what the challenges are and have a really good thought about how to solve for those challenges? What would it mean if we actually centered people experiencing hunger in their voices? Now, people like that food bank from the beginning of our network have always endeavored to work alongside people experiencing hunger. But it felt like we had an opportunity as a collective to go in a much, much deeper level.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we've been doing. So
Yeah.
so we started, there was going to be a White House conference on hunger, health, and nutrition during the Biden administration. And we thought, what are we going to do? And I remember I was being asked to serve on these committees, and maybe I shouldn't say it this way, but it felt like these little elite groups that they
Mm.
were saying, "Oh, Claire, you're a pretty large organization. Why don't you?" And that didn't feel right to me.
Yeah.
I thought I don't want to be on a little mini task force where people listen to me. What could we do that's unique, and what am I positioned to help us to do? And it hit me. What if we help make sure that at that White House conference on hunger, that the voices of people experiencing hunger,
Yes.
that those voices are there?
Yes.
What would that look like? And then we started a body of work and we did
Mm-hmm.
something called Elevating Voices to End Hunger Together. And it was a report that came from us asking people experiencing hunger, who are you? Why are you in the line? What do you care about? What would you prioritize?
Mm-hmm.
And they told us. And we
Yeah.
said, okay, so now we've got this. We're not going to just use it for this conference, which is a transaction, which is a moment in time. How could it actually help us to rethink how we show up in communities?
Mm-hmm.
So we use that to think about how we're going to do our framework for our strategy for the end of the decade, which is called the Network Strategic Framework, which Feeding South Dakota, of course, has been a vibrant part of.
Mhm.
And alongside people experiencing hunger, we've actually come up with a whole strategy for how it is we're going to do the work from
Yeah.
now until 2030. And I'm
Yep.
sure there'll be a new strategy beyond 2030, and it'll be with people experiencing hunger
Mhm.
again. So it has been powerful. So it's permeating everything. Um,
And what I've seen it do is take food banks and take Feeding America from a food sourcing and logistics operation into a I'm going to say customer focused, because that's probably what resonates with people, right? You go shopping at our local Shields outdoor store. They want to learn what their customers want. They're going to stock what their customers want. They're going to advertise to their customers. And the people who want that will be there and will take part in that because it was built for them. And that's really the shift that bringing in these voices has been able to do for the work, is it shifted it to building what works for people because we listened to people.
yeah.
Because the homeless individual, in Rapid City told me he doesn't want a home. He's comfortable being homeless, but he can't come to our distribution because it's too much food and he doesn't have a refrigerator or a freezer. So then we have to say, how can we serve that person? Or the mom of two girls who has just left a relationship and is in low income housing and working full time and still can't afford to put food on the table because she doesn't qualify for benefits because she makes too much money, but yet the money just isn't there at the end of the month. That's a different way of serving, So for me, it really, you're right, that expertise. And it came all the way around to, hey, when somebody shares this with us, they should be compensated for that. We should acknowledge that they're giving us something we can't get from just anywhere. They're giving us that intimate knowledge, and it's impactful. I mean, when you told your story about the food bank, I got goosebumps, right? And we run into that often. People who say, we wear our logo wear, and I've stopped in a town on the way out to Rapid City, and somebody will say, "Oh, is the food truck in town today?" And we throw people off because they recognize the brand and the work that we
Yes,
do.
and they're never disappointed though, right, Stacey? When you go, no,
No,
no, I'm not. It's not
not
the truck.
today.
It's just me. Not to,
Let me look that up for you. They'll be here Thursday.
oh, but I love what you said about let me look that up for you, because that's one of the things, for instance, that we learned, and it's my favorite example. So you might hear me say this multiple times because it's just my favorite example, that we're doing our network strategic framework. We're engaging neighbors experiencing
Mm-hmm.
hunger. They're at the table and then they're realizing, wait a minute, it's actually my table. What?
Mm-hmm.
So they're starting to give us thoughts. And on the data side, which is a really, really important tool in our arsenal for solving for hunger in the country, on the data side, we were feeling pretty doggone good about where we were with data and what we're going to do. And we're going to, when we get this information from neighbors, we're going to use it to do this and then that and the other thing. And then some neighbors who were there, who were at a particular one, and it happened more than one place, but one just sticks out in my head. And that neighbor comes up and says, wait, so let me make sure I understand this. You're saying, so you're doing this for me? So yes, absolutely. This is your blueprint. You're the architect of the blueprint, and then we're going to go build this together. So, okay, great. Well, if you're doing this data stuff for me, you wouldn't be doing it like this. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Well, if you're doing it for me, the first thing you'd work on is telling me how I can find some food.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, wait, how did we miss that as the number one priority of the person experiencing hunger? That
Yeah.
first, may I please let me know where I
Mm-hmm.
can find food.
Where can I go?
Babies are going to be hungry
Yep.
tonight.
Yep.
How am I going to feed my babies tonight?
Mm-hmm.
I have a job interview next week. How am I going to make sure that I'm not hungry in the interview and not focused? My
Right.
son has a big test, whatever it is, what was going on in their lives. But we didn't need to think of it ourselves. We needed to create a space where we were listening actively to
Yes.
them,
Yep.
and then they thought of it because
Yeah.
they live it. And that's just one example of the powerful unlocks. And you mentioned some as well, doing when you know that the group of people who are turning you are often unhoused. you get cans with flip that
Yep.
open
Pop top lids.
the pop
Yep.
top,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't assume a person's going to have refrigeration or a microwave oven for
Mm-hmm.
that matter. So
Yeah.
it's just remarkable the unlocks that we've had with them, centered and really leaning into their expertise. 100%.
And it's a lot to learn. But yet every interaction is a learning experience. And people who ask me about who we're serving or the types of people we're serving, I often say, come volunteer at a distribution. Come help us put the food in the cars, because you get that direct interaction and you can see for yourself and you can talk with people and you can help, you can understand. And so I'm going to springboard into Hunger Action Month from that point, because that awareness is so important. And that's what Hunger Action Month is. It's an entire month dedicated to bringing awareness to hunger locally and in our nation, so that people join the fight to end hunger and take action in this month in some way. Will you share this? It's a Feeding America initiative, Hunger Action Month is. Will you share a little bit about the purpose? Well, I guess I kind of talked about the purpose, but you can expand on that, or the power of it.
Yeah, well, you know what you're talking about. So first off, my first bit of advice to you is tune into this podcast regularly, because she knows what she's talking. Wait, I'm doing it. She knows what she's talking about. So everything you said is absolutely true. So this is actually an initiative that is a Feeding America Network initiative. It reaches all the places that we do, which is every county, every parish in the whole United States of America and Puerto Rico. So it's an activation across the country. The first thing that it aspires to do is raise awareness. So I don't believe most people have enough real problems, and therefore they're not solving for problems they don't think they have.
Right.
So in September, we remind people hunger has not gone away. The cars may have left the parking lots. Maybe it's not blocking traffic anymore, but those lines exist. And in fact, they're longer than they were. So it gives us a chance to increase awareness of what's happening with hunger. It then gives all of you a chance to be a part of the change that you want for your communities. So my recommendation is consistently the same on this front. You are so much more powerful than sometimes I think you realize, and therefore, then sometimes you exercise. You have the power of your time.
Yep.
Give it. Take action against hunger by volunteering. So you can volunteer, start in your own backyard, no matter where you are in the great state of South Dakota. I know there's a partner.
There's hunger
right there. There's hunger there, and there's a partner right there who you can reach out and help. So go to the website for Feeding South Dakota and ask them what it is that they need. And I'll bet your time will be among the things wherever it is that you live. Another thing that you can do is you can donate some of your treasure. We mentioned that the need has increased. Well, the supply has gone down. That's not what you want to see happen. You can be a part of changing that. So you can donate foods, but I got to tell you, the most powerful thing you can donate, other than your time and your voice, I'm going to get to that in a second, is you can donate funds, because those food banks are part of a network that I get the privilege to be a part of. And we're able to optimize those dollars differently than you can. So provide time, food, funds, absolutely. And then your voice. You know what? South Dakota has long punched beyond its weight class. You resonate well beyond your borders, and you do magical things inside of the borders of your state as well. If you make it clear to the people around you in your community, if you make it clear to your policymakers as well. By the way, you've got some remarkable policymakers.
We do.
Position of great power in the great state of South Dakota. If you make it clear to them that this matters to you, that it's something that transcends politics, that you care about your neighbors and you expect them to care too. And we're going to act in a way that's caring. That is a really powerful thing that you can do as well. So I gave you a list. Start with your own backyard. And then if there's a place, let's say you weren't born in South Dakota, you were born in Opelousas, Louisiana, like if you're me.
Like somebody on the podcast.
There you go. You can find ways to give back to the place where you were born if it's not there. Because we are a big, beautiful network. You can go onto feedingamerica.org and punch in the zip code. There's a food bank locator. Punch in the zip code of the community you care the most about, and then go help that community, right?
Yeah.
And then as a national organization, we actually have our fingers on the pulse of what's happening all across the country. If there's room for your generosity beyond those things, then we would be honored for you to entrust your investments with us and know that we will in turn invest that back in communities all across the country who can use it.
We've done incredible things as a food bank because of financial support from Feeding America, and not just dollars, which there have been, but the support of your team there, your marketing team, your government relations, development, food sourcing, all the wisdom and the tools that they impart on us have allowed us to become more efficient and more effective in our work. And that's the beauty of being part of a national network, is really being able to be in lockstep, right? And have that resource when you need it. When you're just not sure, we have somebody to turn to. And that's been a very important thing for us here. But also some of our partners, our community partners that are doing work, have received funding from Feeding America to advance their work. We just, had some conversation about a Natives Prepared project here in South Dakota that is allowing one of our tribal communities to prepare for emergency situations, because Feeding South Dakota can't always. I tried getting a Black Hawk helicopter once and they wouldn't let me. So we can't always get there.
You can't always get there. No, 100%. And you shouldn't always be the one that gets it. I mean, people want to serve their local communities.
Yes.
People have big hearts. And I've been to lots of food distributions where the person standing next to me says, this is what we do here.
Yep.
We take care of each other, and there's something powerful about a community. It's one of the part of the secret sauce of our network. We have this national reach, and we are fiercely local. I think that's a beautiful thing. And by the way, now anybody who knows any of you, and if you've ever met Lori, the CEO of that food bank, they give as good as they get. So the remarkable ingenuity, innovation, dedication, skills that are there in Feeding South Dakota, they share insights with us, and then we get to use them as best practices and cross-pollinate in other places across the country too. So what I love is you're not only open, as bright as you are and capable as your team is, you're open to learning from others, which is kind of a leap for people sometimes.
Yeah.
And you are so generous in sharing your insights too. So that's what makes our network such a powerful one.
You're exactly right. I mean, why reinvent the wheel? If we're serving rural communities in a way that can help another state serve rural communities, we definitely want to share that, because somebody has shared with us how to do food sourcing across state lines or with other food banks. And that's where we really can optimize that work. And when I think of Hunger Action Month, the word that just comes to my mind always is amplify. And we're very fortunate here at Feeding South Dakota to get great media coverage, and some of our listeners and our viewers might be like, "Oh, we hear you all the time talk about this," but this is an opportunity to make it even bigger. It's people with lived experience amplifying their own voices and sharing, their experiences and why our work is important to that, and it's volunteers sharing why it's important to them, and so it's just really bringing this up. And this year it's our 50th anniversary. So that Amplify just got 50 times bigger for us. And we have some really great things happening across the state, of which we have 3 community events, one in each of our distribution centers in Rapid City and Pierre and Sioux Falls, going on this month. And more information about that is on our website, because I don't want to run out of time to talk about your little teaser. And that is that you will be returning to South Dakota this Hunger Action Month for our Sioux Falls event on September 24th. So we are so excited about that, and so excited for what's in store for people who are attending that event. you're going to be facilitating a panel discussion where we have an individual from the Natives Prepared Project talking about the importance of that work. And we have an individual with lived experience sharing their story and how that led them to where they are today. And then Lori is participating in that as well to talk about how every decision we make is centered on those facing hunger in our community. Because you may think that changing a Saturday distribution to a Thursday or discontinuing it might not be impactful, but that could be the only time a family can get there to get food. And so where else could they go if they can't come to us? I mean, those are truly things that as an organization we're thinking about every day when we're making decisions and changes. But we're so excited to have you here. And I just think Claire, you're such an inspiring person and so knowledgeable and always just so generous with your time and your knowledge and sharing with people. And I think that's something that people should be aware that they're in store for when they come.
Wow. Well, thank you. And now may I tell you that back before I worked at Walmart, I was actually a tax lawyer by training. And usually when someone introduced me, if I were going to give a speech or be on a stage, and they said as a tax lawyer, then the expectations for me were pretty low. And I kind of liked it, right? And the high bar for me was, is everyone awake by the time I'm done?
Yeah.
But now you're making people think that it's something good that's going to happen.
It is.
I'm going to have to bring my A game. That's the bottom line. I'm just going to have to bring my A game.
I don't know if you ever don't bring your A game.
Well, I'm so excited to return. As every single place that I go, including the remarkable state of South Dakota. Every place that I've been, they've given pieces of themselves to me, and I've left a piece of my heart with them. So I'm so excited to get back to South Dakota. It's a beautiful state. I love the work that's being done with Native communities. I love that I get to sit in and talk to some people who are being impacted. One of the things that I love about the state is how the embrace of Native culture inside of Native cultures inside of the state, and the acknowledgement that if you're Native American in the state of South Dakota, you're probably 3 times more likely to be food insecure. There are things we can do in partnership in order to change that. And there are things we are working on doing in partnership. And you and the team there are leading in partnership, and it gets me really excited. So I am excited, as I said. Can't wait.
I know it's a short stay, so I would just encourage our listeners and our viewers, if you're open on September 24th from 11 to 2, our open house event will be taking place here in Sioux Falls. Doors open at 11, and the panel discussion, I think, starts at 11:30. So come on in. There will be some food available. Take a tour, get to know the work that we're doing, and really help us acknowledge this 50 years of fighting hunger and have a chance to meet Claire while you're here. So that's my little commercial.
And there's a little thing that I do when I travel. I don't do it all the time, but I've decided I'm definitely going to do it when I'm in South Carolina. I do this LinkedIn post, and I call it "Where's Claire?" Okay. So when you come out and you're there, people who are participating right now, I want you to help me with my "Where's Claire" post, because there'll be a moment in time when I'll say, "So where's Claire?" And then you can be a part of the chorus that screams out the name of the city. And in fact, because these things are happening in 3 places, maybe we should instead scream out the name of the state.
We probably should.
How about that?
Yeah.
Where's Claire?
People,
South Dakota.
Yeah. People can just know you're in the whole state. In the time that you're here, you're just in the whole state.
Woo, there you go. I think we've got a plan. So when you come out and see me and say, are we ready for the Where's Claire yet?
Yeah. All right. There you go. Now we're going to see how many people actually do that. That's going to be a good measure of success here.
It will. I agree.
Well, as we wrap up, Claire, I have just a couple of questions for you. The first one is, from your perspective, Hunger Action Month, you talked about the list of things people can do to take action. We're going to be talking about it on social media all month. Our website is updated. It's everywhere. If you were to advise a listener, what are 1 or 2 things that they could do right now when they get to their destination or they're done with this podcast that they could do right now that would be impactful?
Mm-hmm. Look up Feeding South Dakota. Reach out and
There you go.
offer yourself to them. That would be that is an impactful organization that is in your community, serving your community.
Mm-hmm.
Reach out directly to Feeding South Dakota and help.
There you go. Okay, here's my next one. And you don't even know that this question's coming. All right. If South Dakota were a fruit or a vegetable, what would it be and why? And not category, like a specific fruit or vegetable.
So people might not realize how important this particular vegetable is to me, but I'm going to call South Dakota an okra.
I felt like that. Maybe I was like telepathically sending that to you because
I'm going to call it an okra. Gotta be
right.
an okra. So number one, okra means gumbo. Babineaux-Fontenot. I'm from Louisiana. What can we say? But okra also has such symbolic resonance for me. And there's a proverb which I know that Stacy is aware of, and I'm going to paraphrase it. And it says essentially that one finger cannot eat okra. And what it really means at its core is that the best things that human beings ever do are the things that they do together. South Dakota knows a thing or two about doing stuff together. I would bet on South Dakota when South Dakota is together. South Dakota can solve for hunger in South Dakota, and then can be a beacon of light for hunger every other place in the United States. Be a standout for that. Go be okra, South Dakota.
All right. I love this. I'm going to tell you, it's the first time anybody has said okra. We've had corn multiple times and apples and oranges. And it's the first time we've had okra, Claire.
Well, okra it is. Okra it is.
I don't know if we're going to get that again in the final episodes, but I'll let you know if somebody else comes around with okra.
Let me know if it comes up. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us today, Claire. And thank you for tuning in and listening to our podcast. We're going to be talking about Hunger Action Month all month long. So please be sure to check out the podcast every week as we have a different discussion focused around taking action, amplifying voices, and hunger in South Dakota, and helping to encourage our communities to jump in on the fight against hunger. If you want to learn more, head to feedingsouthdakota.org. You can find our Hunger Action Month page out there, which will have all of our events if you'd like to attend an event. And you can always give us a call, send us an email. We're happy to help and get you involved with the work that we're doing here. Thanks again for being here.